Hello, my name is Healey, and I'm an aspiring storyboard artist and layout previs artist. So, this is my FMP, Woody's Wilderness. It's an original show that I've created, and I've done the layout and the storyboards for it. And now I'm about to go down and break down how I did it all step by step. So, beginning with, I started off with storyboard research, and I was looking at some of the shows that inspired me when I was younger, and things I thought like would look good, like the same sort of art style, that sort of thing, like the way it's drawn, the comedy, the timing, the pacing. So the general shows I looked at the most are Chowder, We Bare Bears, Adventure Time, Over the Garden Wall, Amazing What a Gumball. Those are the main ones I put on here. I was looking at Gravity Falls, the theming for that, and all of the stuff. But yeah, and I was looking at things that they share similarities in their boards, things that maybe different studios do different to each other, and I just saw like which ones should I put for my stuff, which ones should I put for my like other boards, because the feature ones look different, and I'm just trying to see what's the tone of the shows as well, the comedy that works, what doesn't work, things like that. And then I was like looking into the actual storyboards themselves as well. So one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to get more like filmic language wise, just try to make it more visually appealing. So I started off by finding a artist online called Dean Kelly, who's a Pixar storyboard supervisor, and he has a brilliant page. His page is so good. It has all general tips and advice for things, how to save time. So he explains things like how to do walk cycles, maybe like if a character moves slightly instead of drawing the whole thing, things like that, just skewing the perspective slightly of the character, and things like how many shots he draws between two actions, and like composition, things like that. And it's really, really, really helpful, and it definitely helped me so much with my project here, and it's saves so much time. It does, especially with the walk cycles. Instead of drawing every single frame, you just draw a body, arms, legs, and just flip between the two. And yeah, this page is generally just amazing, so I highly recommend checking that out for any storyboard artists. My next part was to research into the actual theme itself. So I knew I wanted to do a show inspired by a lot of the cow artsy sort of modern television shows, but I wanted to find out what sort of theme did I actually want. So I was thinking, oh, what kind of ones that I like, and one of the ones that I really, really enjoy is a like national park sort of theme. So I really like any sort of one with like mountains, with lodges, cabins, trees, everything like that. And I thought that'd be a brilliant place too to try and teach children how to be safe as well in the parks, because there's things like cliff sides and camping and all that stuff, and you just want to be careful there. So I thought this would be a great subject to try and teach kids on, while also showing my work as well. So I began looking into things that could inspire me, and first thing I thought was of Disneyland, because they have Frontierland, which is very, very like cowboyish, but also branches into the cabin lodging sort of feeling of it, and also Country Bears too is a big, big part of that as well. They have like a huge inspiration to the show, and things like and postcards as well. I looked at tons and tons of vintage postcards, mainly from Canada, and they're like amazing, and it just inspired me to try and find out where I wanted to set this exactly, and the sort of like park. Like I think I got it down to a few parks. I can't remember the name, but no, one of them was Yosemite Park, which I really, really enjoyed looking at. But yeah, and I looked into all different general parks, found out which ones were really, really good, and which ones would inspire Woody. And then also the original main character, I've put Bigfoot because originally it was going to be a show, which is still a separate show. I think one day I wanted to try and develop, called Camp Conspiracy, which is about a bunch of different conspiracy creatures like Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, fairies, gnomes, things like that, that all live in this camp in the middle of a forest that's been abandoned. And it was going to follow Bigfoot as the main character, but I decided to shelve that project and just sort of make it a bit more simplified, and then change it from Bigfoot. But that again is an idea I want to visit again one day. Probably post graduation I'll visit that and try and develop that, and who knows, might be on my industry portfolio in the future. And then my next part was to go on to the actual story itself. So I began by looking at the 3-act structure, setup, confrontation, resolution. So just to not overcomplicate the story, because I've been there in the past where a lot of my stories were too confusing, and there's a lot of stuff where you need the audience to guess. I mean, part of that as well was in my FMP with the luchador idea. It was far too, it was far too much in too little time. It's very quick. So with this, I wanted to keep it simple, but also keep it nice and appealing for kids. So I began with the first act, which was to set up Woody and the setting, show the paw print, and him examining it and identifying the three suspects. Act 2 with confronting the eagle, then confronting the duck, and then he visits his friend Sequoia because he realizes, oh, it could be Sequoia. And then Act 3 is he finds out that she's hibernating for the winter, realizes her print, and then she wakes up. And that's it. But originally, I know there was a scene which is a little bit confusing at the end. A lot of tests I've had with the audience shows that they think that at the end it's alluding to Woody's print being on the paw, which is an issue I didn't really have time to change, because a lot of it was already set in stone and done with sound and all that stuff. But there was a scene originally in the original script which I scrapped, which was Woody comparing his foot size to the paw print, and him be like, oh, mine is much smaller, so it can't be me. But when I changed the style of the board, I didn't keep that. So I think that that's something that I'd improve on in the future, and I would definitely go back to using that again. And then in my next part was the script writing itself. So I used Trelby, and with Trelby, I wrote a few different drafts, different openings, different ways to begin the show and everything. But I think in the end I found a really nice way to begin it. And I was thinking originally of going this way, which I saw that Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, usually does. When he has an idea for an episode, he has the general idea for the story, and he just begins storyboarding. And with the storyboarding, he works out the script. There's not actually a script until the storyboards are done, because I think visually it goes over the dialogue so much. And originally I was going to do that, but I thought like I want to step back a bit and actually make sure the dialogue is good, because I don't want to be going to an aimless story, you know. So I wanted to go somewhere nice. And so you can see where I've got my notes as well. I've drawn over a lot of shots, scrapped some dialogue, like I just talked about with the scrap dialogue. Actually, I believe that's on the second page. I believe I've scrapped it from there. And yeah. And then my next part itself was the character design. So I began with drawing some ideas what I wanted for Woody, which you can see at the bottom. And he looked very simple, and I wanted to then redesign him a bit. But then I found this really, really nice model through Turbo Squid, I believe, and I got my model of the camp itself from Sketchfab, but Woody himself was from Turbo Squid, and it was a really nice model because he had the full gear. He had like a backpack, he had a little sash, he had glasses as well, which made him look a bit more brainy, and like it was very, very suitable for the character of Woody. And yeah, I thought this was brilliant. I thought this was perfect. I thought I hit a gold mine here. So then I went on to storyboarding, and there was an issue with the storyboarding. Now I think there was originally 7 pages. So at the bottom it says something else 7. There was only 7 pages that I completed with the storyboards in this style, and in the end I believe there's 21 pages, but there's 7 pages here. And I think I realized pretty soon on that he felt too stiff. He felt like he was a 3D model just being rotated and stuff. It didn't feel very organic and 2D and stretchy and just fun like how it normally is with the shows. So I thought, I can keep the same shots. I'm going to change the opening as well, and I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, and I'm going to just do it again, redesign the character. And I redesigned the final character. So this was the final character here of Woody. You can see here his final design, as well as some expression shots. I just testing the range of it, because I think one of the main prominent features was that he could be really expressive, and I think in the end I really captured exactly what I wanted. Now there is one complaint I will address. He doesn't really look like a beaver. He has buck teeth like a beaver, but he looks like a bear. And initially this is something that I didn't realize, but I think honestly in the future, if I put a tail on him, it would be fine. But I think in the future, this could allude to an episode where maybe he meets another park ranger who he finds out is his dad or his mum, and he finds out he's maybe half beaver, half bear or something, and I can open that more up in the future. But that's just playing with what I have with the design, as I felt this design was by far better than the last one. And yeah, then I went on to the storyboards themselves, and I won't put all the storyboards because, like I said, there's 21 pages, and I think there's 100 and something boards. But here are some of my favorite shots from it. But it's out of order, but yeah, I think some of these ones that showcase high angles, low angles, having more composition wise, and yeah, and I used Panel Forge for this. I did play around with using Storyboard Pro, but I didn't really enjoy it. I'm not really used to that program as much, so I thought I'll stick to what I know and get it done on there. And yeah, I think it turned out really, really well, and I really enjoyed the storyboards for this one. My next part was the sound, and I used two prominent websites for this. The first one I used was Casting Call Club, which is a website I used to get the voices. I casted all different voices for the cast. I casted one for Woody and one for the narrator, and I think I had around 10 auditions for each or so. So I listened to all the auditions and I casted those who I thought was the best suitable for the role. I know it was both of their first projects too as well, so they were very happy to have something to put in their show reel. And all around it just was a very positive experience. And then my other sound was all from Free Sounds. I think it's freesounds.org. And this website's brilliant because you can download any sort of sound, anything at all, and they have it on there. So when I was getting the voice for the deer who goes oops, I just searched the word oops, and it got a woman saying it, and it sounded perfect. Things like the eagle screech, the duck, like Sequoia herself, her little, like, where she wakes up, things like the door openings, footsteps, everything like that is just, it's brilliant for this website, and I highly recommend it. I also use YouTube as well to get the main background music, because I use one long background. It's a 1 hour video of a kid's music. So what I did, instead of cutting between songs, because when I tried it, it felt very awkward transition between them because they were different songs. So what I did was I put one long track and just muted it where parts where it wasn't higher and raised it back up again. And so it naturally went between them, going like raising the volume, lowering the volume, raising it like that. It did like a fade in, fade out rather than a dramatic cut. And I think it turned out really, 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 really well. And also from YouTube, I got the ambience as well, where I just got a video of general forest ambient sounds, and yeah, and I think that was brilliant too, a brilliant touch, because it really brought it together into a nice final picture. And then the last step for the storyboards was the animatic. So this is where I got everything together and put it all into Premiere Pro. I layered the audio because I had to put multiple sounds at once in some stages. So in the scene where Woody is talking about the duck and he grabs the duck's leg and flips it upside down and holds the feet, there's three dialogues at once. There is the splash of the water, there is the duck's like screech noise, quack noise, and then there is Woody talking at the same time. So this was really brilliant using Premiere Pro, because I think I had around like 7 or 8 different audio tracks at once just for all the layered audio. And yeah, and I really enjoy using Premiere Pro. It's a brilliant software, and I think it's amazing, and I generally love using it, and I'm excited to use it again in the future for more animatics too. And then my final stage was the previous layout work. So what I did was I went into Maya and I got my storyboards and I just made what was in the storyboards. I did change the title from Woody's Wilderness to Woody, just because to save time I couldn't fit all the word wilderness in. It was just looking awkward, so I just put the word Woody. I thought it was fine, it's just a test. And yeah, and I think every single time I've used one of these projects, I've improved it. I've gotten better at using layout previous work, and I really enjoy doing it. I didn't think I would, but I've really enjoyed doing layout work. And because initially I shied away from 3D work, but I generally love doing it with layout, because with animation it's a lot more tedious and I'm doing step by step, whereas on there I can just do the general camera work and make sure everything generally looks good, and it's just brilliant. I think I think I loved the layout and previs, and yeah, and I look forward to doing more and more in the future for it. And that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. please go watch the Woody's Wilderness short, and yeah, and look out on my industry blog. That's joehealey.weebly.com, and that will have more episodes coming in the future. And yeah, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.